Hello, and welcome to my channel, Knotty Gnome Crafts. My name is Sarah, and you can find me as Knotty Gnome on Instagram. If you are a new or returning viewer, thank you so much for joining me, and today's video is another edition of Friday Sews, where I talk a little bit about my week of sewing, what I've made, and what my plans are coming up. So this week, I have a few finished things to show you, but before we get started, I am wearing the Fibre Mood Belle blouse that I made last month out of a rayon dobby in sage that I got from fabric.com, and I will link both the pattern and the fabric in the description box below. So what did I finish last week? Well, if you tuned into my previous Friday Sews episode, I was in a little bit of a lull and I couldn't quite decide what I wanted to do next. And after filming that video, I was still undecided, so I figured that I would pull out some of my quilting stash and do a little bit of home sewing. Now, normally, I don't enjoy doing non-garment sewing. Like, I made it through the entire pandemic without sewing any masks because I just didn't want to. And, you know, things like bags and like home decor kind of stuff, I find that stuff really boring to sew, and so I just don't like doing it. But because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to make, and because I have a very sizable quilting stash that's just kind of sitting there and not being used, because I have some physical challenges, it makes it difficult for me to quilt these days, and so I don't really do it anymore. But I have a lot of quilting fabric. So it's just sitting there and making me feel kind of guilty, and so I dug out some fat quarters and I made a set of cloth napkins for my house. We have a set of cloth napkins that I made, I don't even know, like maybe 10 years ago, and they're at the stage where they're falling apart. There's holes in them, you know, like some of the seams have come undone. So it was really time to replace them. So I just, like I said, I pulled out some fat quarters from my stash and I made some double-sided quilting cotton napkins. I just went by the smallest, like not all of them were whole fat quarters, like some of them had been partially used. So I just went with like the smallest one and then made them all that size. So they're roughly 14 inches square. And as far as fabrics go, there's some art gallery, there's some cotton and steel, there's some Moda, and all of these have been around in my stash for probably a minimum of 5 years, so I'm sure that none of them are available anymore. But I just thought that was like a quick little project that I could do to kind of get me out of my funk and get me excited about sewing again, and it worked. So I finished that set of napkins. And the next thing that I decided to tackle was another pair of shorts. So I had purchased the Love Notions Glissando pattern back when she had a 40% off sale, and I wanted to make the shorts, so I used a 9-ounce white cotton duck that I got from fabric.com. And excuse the wrinkles because I just washed these. These are the shorts that I made. They have pockets in the back, they have darts, there's no yoke. The original pattern does not have belt loops, but I added some belt loops, and then it has like a fairly deep 2-inch hem, and it has a button placket on the front. So first of all, okay, I made the size 0 at the waist and I graded to a 2 at the hip. And I did make some changes to the front crotch curve. I believe I added 5/8 of an inch to the width of the crotch to make it a little bit deeper. And then I also increased the rise on both the front and the back by 1 inch because I actually am long in that area. It's like the one place on my entire body that's actually longer than average. So I added 1 inch there. And I also, after I made the shorts, they were longer than I really wanted. Because I'm only 4'9" and most of my shortness is in my legs, I have to wear short shorts. Like, I cannot wear a shorts inseam longer than 4 inches because it cuts off my legs and it just makes me look even shorter than I already am. So when I tried on the shorts and I was ready to hem them, they were just a little bit too long. So I ended up trimming off probably about 1 1/4 inches off of the bottom of the shorts. So they are a little bit shorter than the original pattern. And so those are all the changes that I made to the pattern. Now let's talk about changes that I should have made or that I will make next time. So first of all, grading from a 0 to a 2, from a 0 at the waist to a 2 at the hip. The reason that I did that is because I don't have much curve from my waist to my hip. It's pretty straight. And if the waist of my pants isn't pretty snug, then my pants will just fall down because I don't have enough hip to hold them up. And because I knew this was 100% cotton, it's a non-stretch fabric, I was concerned that the fabric might really stretch out during the day as you're wearing it, and that even if it was snug in the beginning, that by the end of the day, it might be like really stretched out and like falling down. So I went ahead and actually sized down in the waist from what I should have done according to my body measurements. Now, having said all of that, I did wear these shorts right after I finished them. I didn't wash them first. I wore them for almost a whole day, probably about 6 or 7 hours, to test how much they were going to stretch out. And unfortunately for me, they didn't really stretch out. So I can get them on, and I don't think that they look overly tight when I'm wearing them, but they feel pretty tight and they're uncomfortable. I would say it's like I can wear them, but it's one of those things that at the end of the day, you're like super eager to just like change out of them into something else, and you can't have a big lunch. Like, it's just not the most comfortable shorts. So if I were to do this over again, I would just make the straight size 2, and I think the waist would fit better. Now, maybe because a cotton duck is like, it's different from like a jeans, like a twill weave, maybe that's why it doesn't stretch out. I really don't know, but I am still a little concerned about the stretching issue because I have definitely experienced that before with other fabrics. So I don't know if it's just unique to the cotton duck that it didn't stretch out, or if it's just the pattern. But I think in the future, like, I would do the straight size 2, but I would go ahead and add these belt loops just in case whatever fabric I was using does end up stretching out, then I have a little bit more leeway with that. So my first issue with the waist being too tight is kind of tied to the second issue, which is, so Whitney from Tomcat Stitchery has sewn a lot of Love Notions patterns, and she has said that they draft for a curvier figure. So I've made several Love Notions patterns, but I've only done tops or like cardigans. I've never tried their bottoms. So I found what she said to be true, that there's like quite a bit of curve, like from the waist to the hip. It's just very like rounded for the hips. And of course, grading from a 0 to a 2 made that even more pronounced. But I think just even without that, it's just a curvy pattern. And because, as I said, I'm very straight from the waist to the hip, that curve looks a little bit weird on me. It kind of like sticks out a little bit, and there's some extra fabric there. So next time I think I would try to just sort of straighten out the hip to make it a little bit more of an A shape. The other thing about these shorts that I actually didn't really notice from the pictures or the drawings is that they do taper in the leg. I guess I'm just used to shorts that are basically wide leg shorts, that they do kind of have that A shape. I'm not used to ones that taper in the leg. And so I had some issues with them being too tight on my thighs. They're kind of like they're fine when I'm standing up, but you know, like when you sit down and you have to like hike up the bottoms of your shorts so that they don't get caught on your leg. Maybe you don't know what I'm talking about, but if you have thicker thighs like I do, you probably have had this experience before. And I definitely had to do that with these because they are a little bit more tapered in the thigh. They're pretty tight and uncomfortable unless I hike them up before I sit down. So again, like next time, in addition to straightening out this hip curve, I would just make it an A shape, make them wider legs so there's more room for my thighs. Because even though I used my L-shaped ruler to check the crotch fit, and the back crotch shape should have been good for me. It should have been the proper, it was the proper shape for my body. But I noticed that when I wore them and took some pictures, which I actually don't have them right now to show you, but I had some wrinkling in the back thigh area. And I was confused by that because the crotch curve should have fit properly, but I think it's actually not about the crotch curve, it's about the thighs. I think that those wrinkles are there because there's not enough room for my thighs, and that is causing the wrinkles. So I'm hopeful that if I make those changes on the next time that I make these, that they'll fit better, they'll be more comfortable, and they'll be better suited for my body shape. And I do think I want to keep at this pattern, like probably not immediately, but I do think that it's a good design and it's a very useful like basic that I could get a lot of wear out of with a few tweaks. It's just this pair, I don't know that I'm going to wear them very much just because they are so tight. They're a little bit uncomfortable to wear. But I also think that for something like this, like a shorts or a pants that's meant to be kind of fitted, I don't think that doing a bed sheet muslin would have helped. I think that you really need to just go through the whole process of making the garment with, you know, with the fly, with the waistband, with the interfacing in the waistband. And it's just, I could not have known all of these things about the fit issues without actually completing a trial pair of shorts. So this fabric was not like super expensive. It wasn't precious to me. I can order more. So I don't think that this was a wasted effort, but I don't see myself really wearing these, and I'll probably donate them pretty soon. So after going through all of the process of trying to fit those shorts and not really having great success, I wanted to do something that was simple. So I chose this Butterick B6743 skirt pattern, and there's two different versions. So first of all, there's two lengths. There's a knee length and an ankle length, and then these are actually also two different versions. So this one is fuller, it has more volume, and this one is more of an A shape. So I did the A shape version, and I actually did a length in between the knee length and the ankle. I did more of a midi length, and all I did was I had a ruler and I just extended 3 inches down from the knee length and just kind of marked the hem all the way across so that I preserved the curve, and then I used that as my cutting line for a midi skirt. I chose this Rifle Paper Company fabric in rayon. It's from their Strawberry Fields collection. I had 2 yards of this, and I got it from Hawthorne Supply Company. And if you guys have been watching my channel, you know how much I love Rifle Paper Company. I love their fabrics, I love their prints, I love this rayon. It's pretty stable and easy to sew with compared to some other rayons. And I wanted to make the correct decision for this fabric. I've made plans to use this fabric in other things several times, but I just didn't end up doing it because I just wanted to choose the perfect pattern for this fabric. And I think I actually hit on it. So this is, like I said, it's an extremely simple pattern. It's a 6-paneled skirt, and I actually added a slit on the front, on the left side of the front, which is not in the pattern, but because it's a paneled skirt, it's super, super easy to do. And it has a facing rather than a waistband. It has a lapped zipper insertion. Let me take this off. So it uses like a regular zipper, and it has a lapped zipper like this, rather than an invisible zipper. And I don't know, like maybe I'm just weird and old school, but I know everything uses invisible zippers these days, but I actually like the regular ones better because I just feel like they're less likely to fail. I don't know, but I prefer that actually. So yeah, it has a lapped zipper, and then I'm actually not quite done with this. The only thing that I need to do still is the hem, but I was letting I'm gonna let the skirt hang until the weekend because I've learned my lesson about letting hems drop, and I don't want to have an uneven hem. So I'm just like hanging it up on my dress form for a few days to make sure the hem is even before I actually finish it off. But other than that, it's done. I have tried it on. It's so beautiful and swishy. I can definitely see myself making this pattern a tried and true. Like anytime that I have a beautiful print and I just want to showcase it and not do anything too complicated, I think that this skirt is a perfect design for that. I don't really see myself ever making the fuller skirt that's more of like, it's not a full circle, it's maybe like a 3/4 circle or something. I don't know that I would ever do this one just because I'm so short that when you have a ton of volume, it can overwhelm my frame. But I would definitely keep making this A-line shaped one. And I do like adding the slit in the front because I made it a midi length, and because my legs are so short, it's helpful to show more leg, and also just makes it easier to move, obviously. So I do like adding the slit, and yeah, I can see myself just making more of these in the future. I'm really happy with how that came out. So my last finish of the week, I just made it this morning, is the Fibre Mood Belle top. So the new issue of Fibre Mood finally came out. I had said in my June plans that I want to make one Fibre Mood design per month, but because I knew the new issue was coming out, I didn't decide ahead of time what I was going to do because I would probably want to make something from the new issue, and that turned out to be true, but the new magazine dropped later in the month than I was anticipating, so it kind of waited all the way to the end to actually get the magazine, but it's here, and I made my Fibre Mood design for the month. And it is this really beautiful ruffle sleeve top. So I used some fabric from my stash. It was this cotton bubble gauze that I got from Joann Fabrics. And it's kind of like a mauve or like a rose color, I would say. I think that it's really beautiful. I hope that it looks okay on me. I'm a little bit like skeptical about pinks on me for some reason, even though I like the color. But I do like how this top turned out. It's very nice and flowy and airy. That's why I wanted to make this, because I just thought it would be the perfect summer top where it's breezy, maybe, but you don't feel like wearing a tank top, but it just has some nice like airiness to it. And it has a keyhole back with a little facing here. And then it has this ruffle detail, and you do have a little triangular shaped inset to kind of close up the, otherwise this would all be exposed like all the way down to like your waist. So that kind of closes it up. All of the armhole here and does still end up being quite open. When I just tried it on, you could see a little bit of my bra peeking out, but I'm not too concerned about that. So I made the size extra small, but I did end up adding 3 inches in width to the hem. Essentially what I did was I graded up to a size small at the hip, because I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't tight in that area. And I am glad that I did that. I think that was the right decision. But by just adding 3/4 of an inch to the side seam on the front and the back, I saved myself the hassle of trying to like print out both sizes and grading between the two, because all I really needed to do was just kind of widen the hem at the side seams, and that worked perfectly well. So this fabric, I've heard that double gauze is difficult to work with, and I've made one other dress in a double gauze before and I didn't have any issues with it. And I would say the same with this, that maybe it got a little bit frayy, if that's a word, when I was doing the ruffles and stuff, but generally speaking, the fabric was relatively easy to work with. And I just love the texture. I tried not to over press it so that I could really preserve this like crinkly texture, because I think that it's really beautiful. Because of my experience trying to hem the ruffle on this top, I learned my lesson and I just did a serged rolled hem that was so much easier, especially on this double gauze. It would have been difficult to do a narrow hem with the double gauze. So I'm glad that I used my serger for this. I don't have, obviously, matching thread, but I think like overall when you hold it back, it's not like it stands out or that you even notice it, and it has a nice clean finished edge. I also used a quilting cotton for my bias binding instead of trying to use the double gauze, because again, I just thought that using the double gauze, which is a little bit more, has more of a tendency to fray, that it would be a little bit difficult to use such a narrow binding strip with that. So I just used a similar color in a quilting cotton, and that was super easy. The only thing that I don't really like about this, and I don't even know if maybe I just didn't follow the instructions correctly, but this little button loop ended up being huge. And like any other time that I've done a rouleau loop, it's really like skinny. So I have no idea why it ended up so fat. I don't really like the look of that, but it's in the back. And obviously if I wanted to make this top again, it would be a super simple thing to change next time. For the button, I used the button from my stash. It's just like this metal shank button. I don't think that it goes particularly well with the top, but it's basically just, I used what I had on hand. And again, it's in the back, my hair will cover it, and so I don't think it's not a deal breaker for me that I don't love the button. But yeah, other than that, I like the top. I made it because I made this top and I like this one so much that I thought that I might like the style of this one. Now I do have broad shoulders in proportion to my body, and so I don't know, I go back and forth sometimes because like lots of style advice will say that if you have broader shoulders, you're supposed to de-emphasize your shoulders and broaden your hips to be balanced. But then there's other styling advice which I actually might like a little bit better that says that you should just lean into your natural body shape, and if you have broad shoulders then just go ahead and emphasize the shoulders because that's like how your body is naturally built and that's inherently flattering. And I like that idea. I think that maybe I kind of go for a balance between the two. Like I don't mind broadening my shoulders a little bit, but I'm not gonna go so far as, I'm not gonna do the muscle tee with the shoulder pads. I think that would be too much for me, that I would just look like a football linebacker. But something like this, that's very feminine, and yes, it does like emphasize the shoulders, but I don't think that it's too much. So I kind of quickly tried this on after finishing it, and I'm a little bit undecided about it, but overall, I think that it's a pretty silhouette. And it's such an easy breezy top. It'll be perfect for summer, and I'm sure that I'll get a lot of wear out of it. So thinking about what I'm going to work on next week, I still need to do my needle sharp box. Sort of due to factors beyond my control, the needle sharp box usually arrives very early in the month, but this time around it arrived last week, and so I just haven't had time to get to it yet, but I still want to stay on top of it. So I received the Wixton Shift Dress and Top pattern. And you can see that there are several options here. And the fabric that was in my box is this red double gauze. I just washed this fabric, but I haven't ironed it yet. And it's oddly enough, this is also a double gauze, the same as the Belle top, but this does not have the crinkly texture the way that the other fabric did. So I'm not sure why that is, but it's really interesting. This color, it was described as a cherry red, and it's not that I don't like the color, but I would say it's more like a tomato red. It's a little bit more orange than, it's an orangey red rather than a bluey red, and I prefer the bluey reds. But I don't think this is bad. I do think I'll still wear it, but because of the color leaning more orange, and I really, really don't like orange, I decided not to do the dress. I'm just gonna make the top. So I'm gonna make the short sleeve version of the top, but I'm not gonna add the pockets because I want to be able to tuck it in. So yeah, obviously I haven't cut that out yet, but that is what I am planning to do with that fabric. And then probably not right now, but maybe, it just kind of depends on how I feel about it. Because I have enough fabric to make the dress, obviously I'm gonna have a ton left over from making the top. So I was thinking about possibly making a pair of matching elastic waist shorts, and then just having, you know, like a cute little loungewear set that I could wear around the house or even as PJs. But like I said, I don't know right now because I just finished those glissando shorts. I kind of have to be in the right mood to sew pants, and I don't know if that time is now. So I'm just gonna make the top and then decide if I want to make matching shorts or just put it back in my stash and make the shorts later. So that is all that I have for you this week. I did finish my niece's hat. However, I'm currently in the process of washing and blocking it, and then I also wanted to make a pom-pom to stick on the top. So it's not done. So I'll show that to you next week probably when it's finished. And I did start another pair of socks, but that's not super exciting. So that's pretty much all that I have going on this week. So that is all that I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that wherever you are, that you are enjoying yourself. Summer just started here in the Northern Hemisphere, and I am definitely going to be spending some time outside before it gets too hot again. So yeah, have a great week, and I'll see you next time.